Hello, everybody, and welcome to my 2024 NFL MVP video, I guess. I could probably yap about this for like 10 hours, but I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum, because this is one of the more interesting MVP races we've had in a long time. Last year's MVP race for the NFL wasn't really that interesting. We all knew Lamar Jackson was going to win. Whether he deserved to win or not, he was going to win last year, and could potentially be the same sort of situation this year, but so there's 5 MVP finalists this year. I don't understand why they do it that way. So you obviously have Lamar Jackson, you have Josh Allen, obviously Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, and then Jared Goff, which is why I don't understand why they even nominate Jared Goff, because Jared Goff has a 0% chance to win, so it doesn't make sense. It should only nominate people to win MVP who actually have a chance to win. And that's just what I think. So I don't know why they nominated Jared Goff to win NFL MVP. We're going to be talking about Lamar Jackson first, though, which is why I have his highlight video pulled up. But Lamar Jackson's the first player we're going to be talking about. Had such an amazing year this year. See, Lamar Jackson had just an amazing season, really Aaron Rodgers type stuff with his passer rating and just how good he was. His completion percentage, 66.7%, very solid. He barely was over 4,000 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns to only 4 interceptions for 119.6 pass rating. And red pen right there is equal to a league-leading statistic. So if it's in red, it's a league-leading statistic. Yards per game, 245.4. But, yeah, he had obviously a great season. I would totally understand why people would want him to win MVP. His statistics are just ridiculous. But, I mean, I don't know. And then look at his playoff statistics. I didn't realize how good he was in the playoffs, even though they lost to the Bills. I mean, that wasn't obviously his fault. Mark Andrews obviously dropped that pass, but 73.9% completion percentage, 429 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, only 1 interception, a fumble, which we all remember that fumble from the Bills game, 120 rushing yards, and then, of course, the most amazing stat is his pass rating was 122.5 in the playoffs. I guess 73.9% completion percentage is really good as well. But Lamar Jackson was obviously really, really good this year. I mean, the biggest thing to me, look at the league-leading statistics. Pass rating led the league in touchdown percentage. 8.6% of all of his throws were touchdowns. That's just ridiculous stats, crazy stuff. He did lead the league in yards per carry. But, I don't know. When a quarterback leads the league in that, I don't really think it's too impressive. But he did average 6.6 yards per carry. So I guess, I don't know. I'm going to talk about at the end of this video if I think, who I think should have won MVP or should deserve to win MVP. Also, I forgot to mention, tonight is NFL Honors, so we're going to figure out who wins NFL MVP tonight, so that's a big deal. But yeah, as I was saying, NFL Honors is tonight, and, it's really going to be interesting to see who wins MVP. Obviously, we all kind of know Lamar Jackson will win, but here's the interesting thing that I learned today, was that, the NFL MVP is decided before the playoffs even start. So the people who vote for NFL MVP, they vote for an MVP before the playoffs even start, which is dumb. But it's because it's a regular season award, which makes sense, I guess. But real MVPs win championships, so I disagree with that. But so what I'm looking into when I decide who I think deserves the most to actually be the most valuable player in the NFL, I think I'm gonna take some playoffs into consideration for sure. But yeah, Lamar Jackson is obviously the favorite to win MVP. But now we're going to be talking about somebody who's just so amazing this year and didn't even make the playoffs. And that's Joe Burrow. I already have his highlight reel pulled up. And also probably going to be a lot of ads on here because the NFL YouTube channel just loves to throw in tons of ads because they just want to make as much money as they can. But yeah, pretty amazing. Joe Burrow had an amazing year. He was just so accurate with his passes. This season, he completed 70.6% of his passes. He led the league in passing yards and passing touchdowns. Let me see if I can show this without having to flip the camera around. No, because that's going to be in reverse. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, Joe Burrow was he was just on fire this year. really, I mean, it's just, I don't understand how they didn't make the playoffs. Obviously, they ended the year on a 5-game winning streak, finishing it out with a 9-8 record. But if they wouldn't have lost to the Patriots in week 1, what'd they lose to? Like, Patriots only put up like 16 points or something like that. If they wouldn't have lost to the Patriots week 1, they would have been in the playoffs. And, Joe Burrow's MVP case look a lot better. Because I personally don't think a player should even be in conversation for MVP if they don't even make the playoffs. Because, how much of an MVP are you if your team didn't even make the playoffs? But obviously, amazing statistics for Joe Burrow this year. Obviously, the best season so far of Joe Burrow's career. Led the league in yards, passing touchdowns, passing yards per game. Only 9 picks to 43 touchdown passes. And then 45 total touchdowns because he had 2 rushing. Joe Burrow was just amazing this year. But he's not my pick for NFL MVP. Lamar Jackson's definitely over him just due to the fact that, playoffs, if you put playoffs into the picture. But Lamar Jackson's season, look, Joe Burrow had a ton of passing yards, but it's just, Lamar Jackson was better this year. So that's the case with that. So, yeah, that's Joe Burrow. I'm actually surprised at how condensed I'm talking about all this stuff, because I thought this video was going to be like an hour long. But it's actually not going to be an hour long. I guess I don't know that yet. But yeah, Joe Burrow was just amazing this year. He was just such an accurate passer. And I really don't understand how they didn't win more games. They had Jamar Chase, they had T. Higgins, The running game was actually kind of decent this year. And then Trey Hendrickson, of course, he potentially could win Defensive Player of the Year this year. This doesn't make any sense how the Bengals didn't win more games this year. But they shouldn't have lost to the Patriots week 1. They didn't lose to the Patriots week 1. They would have tried 10 wins on the season, and none of this would have happened. So that really is just dumb to me. But, and the Patriots are obviously one of the worst teams in the league this year. So. But anyway, next up we're going to be talking about Jared Goff, and I just don't understand why they nominated him. Actually, we're going to take a break here and just talk about this other thing that I wanted to talk about. Where I have this written down. So the way they vote for the NFL MVP is just so dumb. Because, when you take a look back at last year, 2023, Lamar Jackson obviously won MVP last year, and he had 493 vote points. But Dak Prescott finished second in MVP voting last year with 152 vote points. But I just don't really understand. People who vote for the MVP just don't have common sense. Because you look at C.J. Stroud and Matthew Stafford, last year, Tyreek Hill, Matthew Stafford, C.J. Stroud, and Myles Garrett all received MVP vote points. If you thought Matthew Stafford was MVP of the NFL last year, then you probably shouldn't be voting for NFL MVP. And same with C.J. Stroud. He was not MVP last year. Tyreek Hill shouldn't have got any MVP votes either. Brock Purdy got MVP votes, but, I don't have a huge problem with that. But Myles Garrett got 1 vote. The one person who voted for Myles Garrett for MVP was really dumb. Voting for Matthew Stafford's stupid. Matthew Stafford had 4 vote points. 4 people thought that guy deserved MVP. That is so dumb. But the best example of why the MVP voting system is just 100% flawed is 2007. Because these people just don't understand what they're doing. In 2007, Tom Brady had 50 touchdown passes and led the only regular season, only 16-win team. So yeah, they were undefeated in the regular season, 16 wins, only team in NFL history to win 16 games in a season, in the regular season. And he had 49 vote points, okay? And Brett Favre had 1 vote point. Who the heck voted for Brett Favre? If you just, it just doesn't make any sense. 1 person voted for Brett Favre. Tom Brady received 98% of the votes. One person voted for Brett Favre in 2007. It just shows how much common sense the people who vote for the NFL MVP have. Not much. I figured out that there is actually some responsible people who vote for NFL MVP. Chris Collinsworth, Troy Aikman were 2 guys I remember. I can't remember some of the other people I know of who vote for NFL MVP. But there's about, how many people? I think there's about 50 people who vote for NFL MVP every year. And a lot of those people just don't have common sense. So I figured out as well that apparently a lot of media people for each NFL team vote for the NFL MVP, which makes me realize that the person who voted for Brett Favre in 2007 was probably the Green Bay Packers media guy. But it still doesn't make any sense. Come on, anybody with a brain should know Tom Brady was better than Brett Favre in 2007. And if you understand how good Tom Brady was, and Tom Brady led the league in passing touchdowns, passer rating, I'm pretty sure he led the league in passing yards. He led the league in everything last year, or in 2007. And then they picked Brett Favre It wasn't even that good. Brett Favre's season was not even that great. It's the same thing with people who voted for Matthew Stafford in 2023. That just doesn't make any sense. But now that little rant, I guess, is over. Back to Jared Goff, who just absolutely should not have been a finalist. I'm not going to take too long to talk about him because this is a waste of time. Jared Goff was, he's not going to win MVP. He's 0%. Why is he a finalist? I have no idea. But if the fans got to vote, then it would be stupid because the fans would just vote Saquon Barkley, and I have no problem with that. Saquon Barkley is 100% deserving of the MVP, but the fans don't have enough context, honestly. Not all of them do. But Jared Goff obviously had a great season this year. 72.4% completion percentage, 4,629 passing yards, 37 passing touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 111.8 passer rating. Very good overall statistics. He had 6 fumbles. Rushing stats don't exist because he just was not a good rusher at all. 15-2 record, and he fell apart in the playoffs. 57.5% completion percentage, 313 passing yards, passing touchdown, and 3 interceptions. I mean, as you can see, he just has pretty solid stats overall. But yeah, the playoffs, he just completely fell apart. It just doesn't really make much sense to me. But I mean, to be honest, overall, and that kind of makes sense, I guess, why they vote for the NFL MVP before the playoffs even start, because, I'm sure how Jared Goff did in the playoffs would probably sway people's opinion. But regardless, Jared Goff wasn't going to win MVP anyway, even if they went to the Super Bowl, he wasn't going to win MVP. I think we all can understand that. Now, Jared Goff absolutely flourished in the Lions offense this year, and they just ran all sorts of crazy trick plays, and it was really fun to watch, and Jared Goff was a really fun player to watch. But overall, he should not win MVP. He had a great Pro Bowl caliber season, but he was absolutely not. He should not be running for MVP, not in MVP contention anyway. Okay, next up we have Josh Allen. And Josh Allen has a very strong case for MVP because he's Josh Allen and he just had an amazing year. So, find my thing on him. Yeah, Josh Allen was just amazing this year, no doubt about it. The stat that stands out to me the most is 41 total touchdowns, possibly. But if you just watch their games, was just an MVP type player. If the Buffalo Bills did not have Josh Allen, they'd be in huge trouble. But this is where you kind of have to think about what is the NFL MVP actually? Does it go to the best player in the world, best player in football, or does it go to the most valuable player? And it's obviously a quarterback's award at this point. Obviously, we all know that. Everybody knows that, and it's so annoying. But yeah, there's just I don't understand how they decide who picks the NFL. How do they decide this stuff? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's either the best player in the world or it's most valuable, and I just don't understand. Because if it's the best player in the world, then Patrick Mahomes should win the award every year. And if you don't agree with me on that, it doesn't make much sense because Patrick Mahomes consistently leads his team to Super Bowls, and if you win the Super Bowl, you're the best in the world. Patrick Mahomes is obviously the best player on the planet right now, but yet he hasn't been in MVP contention at all, really, for the past 2 seasons. And honestly, he probably should have been a finalist. I think Patrick Mahomes should have been more of a finalist than Jared Goff. But then again, as we were talking about earlier, it's a regular season award, and I'm not going to sit here and try and defend Patrick Mahomes' regular season statistics and say that he should have been an MVP finalist. But looking on the playoffs, he definitely should have been. But and the same thing as last year. Last year, the NFL MVP was Lamar Jackson, right? Patrick Mahomes was just amazing last year in the playoffs. Amazing playoff run last year. And, at the end of the year, I was just thinking, man, Patrick Mahomes is really the best player in the world. Why the heck is he not in MVP contention ever? Yeah. And the thing is, he really doesn't hardly even need to try in the playoffs. Honestly, I feel like you got the feeling this year Patrick Mahomes was never even playing at full power. He was saving it all for the playoffs, it really felt like. But I guess back to Josh Allen. I'm getting distracted. They didn't call Josh Allen Superman this year for nothing. He was just constantly making pretty amazing plays. This guy's highlight reel is amazing this year. And there's just countless things that he did this year that are just amazing. His statistics in general, one thing that is way different from like previous years of Josh Allen's career is he threw quite a lot of interceptions basically every year of his career. But this year he completely toned down the interceptions, throwing only 6 of them to 28 touchdown passes, 12 rushing touchdowns. He had just had an amazing year, 41 total touchdowns, an amazing season. One of those was a receiving touchdown, which, by the way, side note, he was the only player in NFL history to have a rushing, passing, and receiving touchdown in a single game. Also important to note that Josh Allen somehow seems to play better in the snow. I don't know if it's context. Maybe you can put that into consideration. He's just a better, no matter what weather it is, this guy's playing his best football. It just doesn't really make any sense. And then the playoffs, he was great in the playoffs. 70.7% completion percentage, 636 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. Pass rating was great. 105 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He did fumble the ball 3 times in the playoffs, which stinks. But, I mean, very, very good stats this year from Josh Allen. His completion percentage is a bit more down compared to his overall standard for his career. But overall, just an amazing year by Josh Allen. When I'm looking at the stats right now, I just honestly, if you just look at the stats alone, Lamar Jackson is way better than Josh Allen statistically. If you look at highlight reel and just look at overall impact and everything, Josh Allen has a case for MVP. And obviously, it just annoys me because people were talking about when Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson met in the divisional round of the playoffs, everybody was basically saying that, this game will decide the MVP award. Of course, people maybe didn't know that. And the people who said that probably didn't know that the MVP was already decided before that game even happened. Which honestly just sounds crazy to me, but yeah, Josh Allen, the Bills did beat the Ravens, so that's MVP points for me, but, still, when you look at these statistics, Lamar Jackson's statistics are way better than Josh Allen's. But the thing is, Josh Allen's just crazy. I went to a Colts game this year where we were playing the Buffalo Bills. The Bills beat the heck out of us, no surprise. But Josh Allen was amazing in that game, and it was fun and great to see him in person. And it's just amazing how this guy just constantly makes a play that is just a falling apart play, just turning it into just an absolute amazing play. I mean, I don't understand. Lamar Jackson does it too, but Josh Allen can just make something out of nothing, and that's just exactly what the best MVP caliber quarterbacks in the NFL can do. Hello everybody again. I accidentally ended the video, so I guess that was part 1 and this is part 2. But continuing right where I left off, maybe I'll figure out how to edit these videos into one video, but probably not. This is probably part 2 of, I guess, my MVP NFL player series at this point. But I added an MVP finalist because I really think if you're going to make Jared Goff a finalist, you should also make Jayden Daniels a finalist for MVP as well. Because Jayden Daniels is 100%, if you're talking MVP, Jayden Daniels is 100% an MVP caliber player, especially with what he solidly did in the playoffs. Now, obviously, we were just talking about, the playoffs apparently don't have anything to do with MVP voting at all, so it doesn't sway people's opinions because apparently the vote's already decided, which is dumb. But yeah, Jayden Daniels, 100% I think should have been an MVP finalist if you're really looking in the context of everything. I mean, seriously, I wonder, obviously Jared Goff was great this year, but if you're going to make Jared Goff a finalist, then Jayden Daniels should have been a finalist too. I mean, his stats this year, especially for a rookie, I mean, it's just amazing. Jayden Daniels, amazing statistics, 31 total touchdowns this year. In the playoffs, he was pretty darn good in the playoffs. If there's anything, 0 fumbles throughout the playoffs is pretty mind-blowing to me. I mean, if you take out the Eagles game, he was basically perfect in the playoffs. We saw what he did against the Buccaneers. We saw what he did against the Lions. He was perfect in the playoffs, despite that game against the Eagles, where he still played pretty good. His team just could not keep up with the overall talent of the Philadelphia Eagles, because the Eagles were obviously better than them in every position. But Jayden Daniels was great this year. Obviously, he's not going to win MVP, and, I mean, I'm not saying, if you're going to give, I wouldn't nominate Jayden Daniels for MVP, because I know he's not going to win. But I'm saying if you're going to nominate somebody for NFL MVP, then you should nominate guys who actually have a chance to win, because obviously, as we know, Jayden Daniels and Jared Goff are not going to win MVP, and they shouldn't have had Jared Goff, being an NFL MVP finalist. Now, this is where the video gets really good, because this is the part of the show where we get to talk about Saquon Barkley. there's one thing I like to talk about in MVP conversations, it's running backs. And whether you can argue about whether running backs should even be an MVP discussion or not, I think they should be, especially if they have good of a season as Saquon Barkley had. Now, I was really getting really happy and excited because when we were seeing what Saquon was doing in the playoffs, I was like, man, what if Saquon Barkley could actually win MVP? But when I found out that the playoffs, the MVP is already decided before the playoffs, it made me realize that there's 0% chance Saquon's going to win MVP. It absolutely breaks my heart because, he's, I don't know if I would vote for him. We're going to decide that at the end of the video who I think should win MVP. But it's just really, it's a shame to me that they're not seeing the value of Saquon Barkley's season. Now, obviously, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, those guys they had a great season. But Saquon was just different. He was better in different ways, obviously, because he's a running back. But yeah, Saquon Barkley, just amazing stats this year. Once again, any stats highlighted in red are league-leading statistics. But, just an amazing year by Saquon Barkley. I wish I would have made a stat of how many, 60-plus yard runs he broke this year, because there was a ton of them. Probably 5 of them at least, I would say. It was just crazy. 70 yard, there's probably more than that, actually. I don't know. But he was just a big play machine. Just think of how many times this season where Saquon Barkley, when, he just completely iced the game and just put the game away. It's pretty crazy. This highlight video right here is from the Philadelphia Eagles YouTube channel, so there's less ads. They're not as money hungry as the NFL, I guess. But, basically, though, Saquon Barkley just had such a good year this year, and man, I tell you what, that green on that black letters, that is clean. Okay. But anyway, letters aside, the point is he had a great season, and obviously only played 16 games. Had they not set him out, he would have gotten the NFL rushing record. We all know that. And he would have been able to do it against the Giants. Couldn't have had a better storyline, and you got to feel bad for Saquon Barkley for that. And, of course, will they win the Super Bowl? We don't know. I guess we'll find out soon, won't we? But it's just his stats are just amazing. So we're just going to take some time to go through these. Obviously, 2005 rushing yards, both those statistics right there led the league. Led the league in rushing yards per game, 125.3 rushing yards per game, 13 touchdowns. The touchdown numbers absolutely kill his MVP status because he just doesn't have enough touchdowns to really contribute to it. People aren't going to vote for him for MVP when they see the touchdown numbers. The yards per carry, 5.8, which is great. Only fumbled twice. Yards from scrimmage, led the league, obviously, 2,283 yards from scrimmage, 15 total touchdowns. Total yards per game, 142.7, which is just ridiculous. 13 games over 100 yards from scrimmage in the regular season. There's, of course, the famous backwards hurdle. But Saquon was just an absolute highlight machine this year. He already was named the Burt Bell Player of the Year, which, in case you didn't know, is another MVP award that the NFL doesn't hand it out. It's a different organization, but it's a pretty big award. Saquon won. But obviously, he's not going to win MVP. He is also an All-Pro. And I forgot to mention about Lamar Jackson, but he was a first-team All-Pro this year. Only quarterback to be first-team All-Pro this season. So it kind of just goes to show that he's really most likely going to be he's going to be the MVP this year, most likely. But obviously, in the playoffs, Saquon Barkley he's on the cusp of he's already had one of the greatest running back playoffs of any player ever. And he still has a game to go in the Super Bowl. But look at this. Through 3 games, 477 total yards, 5 touchdowns, 159 total yards per game, no fumbles, just an absolute perfect game. We saw what he did against Washington. It's just crazy how good Saquon Barkley is. I'm not going to say he's carrying the team because the offensive line is amazing, but, he's crucial to their success. Who was saying, I was watching ESPN the other day, the Eagles got Saquon to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Or just win the Super Bowl, not, beat the Chiefs. And here we go, they're showing this play right here. That's just, I don't understand how you can even do that. Please show the replay of that. But, I just don't understand. Look at this. Boop. Okay. But, really is crazy to me just how good Saquon Barkley was this year. But there's more context to Saquon Barkley's season. Jalen Hurts had 14 rushing touchdowns this year. If you think about all the times where Saquon Barkley got to the 2 or the 1 yard line, and he just And then they just, instead of running it in with Saquon Barkley and getting him an easy touchdown, they did the tush push Philly special, whatever you want to call it, and got Jalen Hurts the rushing touchdown instead. I mean, if you put that into context, Saquon Barkley would have had like over 20 touchdowns this year. And then, of course, if you put more context in the fact that think about all those times this year where Saquon Barkley slid instead of going for the touchdown to, ice the game or whatever. Like when he slides to keep the clock rolling when they're like beating out a team instead of scoring a touchdown. He did that like probably 3 times this year, so that's 3 more touchdowns he lost out on. Maybe it's even more than that. I mean, with context, Saquon Barkley could have easily had 25 plus touchdowns this year, I think, which is just ridiculous. I don't know. Maybe an Eagles fan probably would know that better than me. Look at that stiff arm. But anyway, the point of the matter is Saquon was just amazing this year, and his highlight reel is obviously the most fun to watch out of all the players who are MVP finalists this year. But, I mean, I would love for Saquon Barkley to win MVP, but this is all decided, like, before the playoffs even happen, there's no way. But Saquon Barkley could potentially win Super Bowl MVP, so I guess there's still hope for that. But yeah, so we're just gonna keep Saquon Barkley's high reel up here because it's just amazing. Oh my, wow. Anyway, but yeah, I just this is probably the part of the video where I should, say what I think and who I think the NFL MVP should be, who deserves it the most. I mean, we'll probably take a quick, I'll probably, cut the video here and I'll probably rank my MVP finalists and then we'll talk about that. But, I mean, it's just, I don't even know what I want to say here, but there's something wrong about this. I would love for Saquon Barkley to win MVP, but there's a 0% chance. He's just not going to win MVP. If he does, I'll be thrilled, but, and then of course there are going to be people arguing that Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen should have won. But yeah, so, I'm going to cut the video, and I'm going to rank my NFL MVPs, and then I guess we'll be back. After careful consideration, I have thought long and hard. I've already thought long and hard before I even made this video about who I think the NFL MVP is, who deserves it the most, and all that stuff. So, most deserving player of the NFL MVP this year is most deserving player Saquon Barkley. He's my MVP. I think Saquon Barkley should win the NFL MVP this year. He's my pick for MVP, and my bias towards running backs, 100%. But he should win MVP. I just want him to win MVP so bad. He's obviously not going to. 0% chance to win it. Here's how I ranked my NFL MVPs. But this is how I ranked him right here. Saquon Barkley, number 1. He's my MVP. Lamar Jackson, very close. It was just such a tough decision. And obviously Josh Allen is he's literally what an MVP is. He's so valuable. But pretty crazy to me. I mean, I don't know. It's just a tough call. But I know exactly who the NFL MVP award is going to go to tonight at NFL Honors. My prediction, which will be 100% correct, Lamar Jackson will be your 2024 NFL MVP. Josh Allen will finish second runner-up in voting, followed by probably Saquon Barkley. And those are my MVP predictions. Those are most likely going to be 100% correct. Lamar Jackson will be your 2024 MVP, which I guess leads me to another thing I want to talk about, which is the fact that Lamar Jackson is going to be a 3-time, most likely, I guess we don't know for sure. I'm just positive that since the NFL MVP awards decided before the playoffs even start, Lamar Jackson won MVP. I'm just positive about that. 100% chance that Lamar Action Jackson will win MVP. But we're talking about if he wins, that's a 3-time NFL MVP. I'm trying to think if there's a player in NFL history who won 3 MVPs and didn't make the Hall of Fame. So just the thought of the matter is Lamar Jackson's most likely going to be a Hall of Famer. And when's he going to get a Super Bowl ring? So I guess that's even more stuff to think about. But yeah, Lamar Jackson, he needs more playoff success. When is it going to be enough? They got Derrick Henry this year. When is it going to be enough for Lamar Jackson? But the other thing I just want to talk about right before I close out the video is the best player in the world is obviously Patrick Mahomes. I stated that earlier. But the best player in the world is Patrick Mahomes. So is he the MVP? No. Lamar Jackson is going to be the MVP. So obviously they're getting that all wrong. I don't know. I mean, if I threw Patrick Mahomes into this list, I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously the Super Bowl will probably sway me. Like, if Patrick Mahomes beats Saquon and the Eagles in the Super Bowl, then Patrick Mahomes is probably still the best player in the world. If Saquon Barkley beats Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and even if he doesn't win Super Bowl MVP, I guess, I think he's probably the best player in the world, undisputed, I think, which would be a big deal. But, I guess that's enough yapping for me. So, that was a fun video to make. This video is going to be less than an hour long, which I guess is always a plus. But yeah, I want Saquon to win so bad. I'll be rooting for him to win MVP. But he obviously, Lamar Jackson, will win MVP. Also, another thing, Defensive Player of the Year. This has been the weirdest year ever because no one, absolutely nobody, has been talking about the Defensive Player of the Year finalists and who's going to win and all that stuff. I mean, I think people maybe either think it's going to be TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson. Most people think it's Trey Hendrickson, but we absolutely cannot just give the Defensive Player of the Year to the player who has the most sacks every single season, because that's what we've been doing the past few years, and the past few years it's been fine. I mean, actually, I guess TJ Watt led the league in sacks last year, and they gave it to Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett was 100% deserving. He was my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. This year, my pick is Zach Bond, there's probably people watching this who won't even know who that is, but he's a linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles. Just look up his stats. He's having a fantastic season. And if you just watch highlights and if you just watched Eagles games, he's just amazing. So Zach Bond's my vote for Defensive Player of the Year. But I imagine it'll probably go to Trey Hendrickson or TJ Watt. I wouldn't be shocked if it went to Zach Bond, but I'm not sure that the voters are smart enough to do that. Anyway, that's enough for now. Thank you for watching, I guess. I don't know who I'm rooting for the Super Bowl. I don't know if I should make a Super Bowl preview video. I'm probably not going to do that, but regardless, I guess I'm rooting for Saquon to get a ring, but also it'd be kind of devastating for the Chiefs if they didn't win 3 in a row. But to be honest, I mean, I don't think many people really care. I just want to see a good game, and I think that most people do too. I don't really care who wins. I just want to see a good football game. Anyway, thank you for watching.